Hey there, everybody. Welcome. This is Whistlekick Martial Arts Radio, episode 842. My guest today is Jessie Elva. I'm Jeremy Lesniak, your host here, founder of Whistlekick, passionate, avid traditional martial artist, and someone that believes martial arts makes us better, which is why we have the goal of getting everybody in the world to train for 6 months. Join us as we connect, educate, and entertain martial artists worldwide, no matter what they train. If you want to support us in our mission, go to whistlekickmartialartsradio.com. Go deeper on this episode or the other episodes that we do. Tell people about them. Buy something at whistlekick.com with the code podcast15. Or check out our training programs or one of the seminars that I teach. Or maybe you want some help with your martial arts school, getting it to grow, bringing in more students, more money. We do that too. We do all kinds of great stuff. You can reach out to me, Jeremy at whistlekick.com, or join the family Patreon. Now, today's guest is someone that I met a few months ago on TikTok, and really like the spirit that she brings to her content and the spirit that she brings to martial arts. And I had a feeling there was a story in there. I could just kind of tell after you do this for a while, you can tell when somebody's got a good story to tell. And I was right. She tells that story. And I think you're going to like it. Jessie, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you, Jeremy.
Thanks for being here. I want to let the audience know, we met, I think you're maybe our second or third person that I met on TikTok that's come on the show. And we met in a different way than I've met some of the others. And that might come out later, and that's okay. That actually, I just made that sound really, really terrible, didn't I?
No.
We met because there are a lot of people online who are jerks. We'll just leave it there. Is that fair to say?
That's fair. The kind of like trolling. Yeah.
Yeah. I am, as the audience knows, I'm a bit anti-troll, and will. I consider trolling to be a bit of a bullying thing, which I find ironic that comes out of our space. But I will always stick up for people and step out when necessary there. Yeah. But that got us. We talked a bit, and I thought, you know what, your story's interesting, at least the bits that I know. So let's get you on and let's see. Now, we're going to work a little bit in, not quite in reverse. We're going to bounce around a little bit. I don't want to start at the beginning. We often start at the beginning, but we're not going to start at the beginning. I want to start. You recently went through a testing.
Yes.
And you were really nervous.
I was very nervous.
Talk about that.
Okay. So this was my second Dan testing, and I had originally registered for it in 2021. And I ended up having some medical issues with the pregnancy, and I had a miscarriage. And so it's fine. And I've worked through that. But I took some time to heal, and I re-signed up for my test in, I think it was that was the spring of 2021 and fall of 2021. And I ended up getting COVID. And so it was the weekend and the same week of my test that I got COVID, and there was no way that obviously I was going to be able to test. And so it got postponed again. So the plan was, to get better, and spring came, and I was not in a place where I was able to register for the spring test. So then I registered for the fall test in 2022. Okay. And I got influenza A. I got sick with the flu.
Are you at that point? Are you starting to feel like the universe just wants to keep you as a first odd forever?
I felt stuck, and I felt stuck in life. I had gone through a couple of, I've escaped some domestic violence between that time. And so my second dawn test really kind of represented to me my ability to move forward in life and move past and kind of heal from some of those things. Because when I was going through that, it made it really, really difficult for me to show up to class and be a consistent person. And I know that leading up to when I was able to get out of that and I was scheduled to test in the fall, I was coming to class regularly. I felt like I was getting myself back. And during that time too, I had thought about quitting because of how inconsistent that I was. I knew that if I had quit, that I would lose myself completely because of how much I love martial arts and how much it kind of just keeps me going. So when I was scheduled for my test in the fall, super excited, super nervous, got sick. I remember calling one of the masters of my school and telling her, and she could barely hear me. Like I sounded really terrible. And I told her, and she's like, okay, well, we'll schedule you obviously for the springtime. And it was only 6 months away. And that came really, really fast. But one of the things that my 12-year-old son, it was a fall test, but it was right after Thanksgiving. We were putting up the Christmas tree and eating ice cream, and I'm just bawling. I'm just crying, and he looks at me and he's like, Mom, it's going to be okay. And he was so sweet. And I was like, you know what? It is going to be okay, because it's going to give me more time to prepare even more. And then we, kept working on it. And one of the things that I have from some of the things that I've gone through is I have PTSD. And so that factoring into testing, I have problems with my memory. And so I can learn something and then I can completely forget it the next day. So sometimes if I don't practice it every day, and it's like the technique's there, the muscle memory's there. And I know that when I would have to memorize like a kicking combination, like a punching combination, I would struggle with remembering it, and I'd have to relearn it and relearn it and relearn it. My 12-year-old son was very helpful in helping me do that. He was really sweet. And I also had some good friends from the school that they would meet with me on Sundays when there was no classes open, and we would go through all the stuff and they would help me prepare. So that was, I think that's just kind of sometimes part of the journey. Like you don't always, I know when I tested for my first degree, it happened really fast. There was no hiccups. There was no roadblocks. There was no problems. I was trained, tested, and then all of a sudden I felt like a white belt again. And the goal was to keep testing for the next Dan. So that 2 years was what the rule was. And so it actually ended up being 5 years between my first Dan and second Dan. I felt like I had no idea what I was doing. And so it was kind of like, again, like the beginning of a learning. And so my second Dan represented to me like healing, and it's all part of a journey, but it was more than just martial arts to me. It was learning to accept, the speed, how fast things go in life, but to keep moving forward. Because sometimes I think you can go like really, really fast through something. And then sometimes I think back to when I thought about quitting. And I couldn't run. I couldn't walk. I couldn't even crawl. It was like I was scooting or rolling really slowly, really, really slowly, but I didn't want to give that up. And so the journey was slow, but it was still a journey. And I think sometimes, I don't know, I got caught in the trap of worrying that it meant that I was stuck. But I just think that it meant that I'm still learning, I'm still growing, and I'm going to run again. I don't know if that makes sense. But yeah, that's kind of how that test went. Testing day came. I was really nervous. It's one of those things too where there's a different energy on the mat. And I knew that one of the things is, it's supposed to be hard. It's supposed to really, really push you to your limits. It's supposed to make you pull out all of your strength in order to achieve this, any dawn really. And it was painful. There's a couple times where I'm like, okay, what am I doing? Like I am almost 40 years old. This hurts. It doesn't really it really like the thoughts that go through your head, right? When you're, doing butterfly kick after butterfly kick and burpees, and you feel like you're going to pass out, and like everything just hurts. And I looked up and I saw my 16-year-old son sitting there, and he was helping me count through each rep that I was doing. And
your kids also train, right?
What?
Your kids also train?
So yes, they did. And they have like my 12-year-old, he does basketball now instead. I actually originally started because they were doing it and it was something for me to do with them when they were really little. And my son sometimes will come to sparring still. But they don't go regularly.
Okay.
Yeah. So they're the ones that got me into it though. And I thought to myself, like, what am I doing? Like, why am I putting myself through this pain? Like, why is it such a big deal to me? And I like looked up and he's sitting there and just watching me. And he's 16. I gave him the option to either, come watch me test. I'm like, but you don't have to. I understand it's mom. Like, it could be boring for you. You don't have to spend 2 days. It was a 2-day test, like sitting there and watching me kick things. And he decided on his own that he wanted to be there. So he was counting and I'm like, that's why I'm doing this, because by me doing this, it's going to show my kids that no matter how difficult it gets, no matter how many things get in the way, no matter how many roadblocks that happen, no matter how long it takes, hold on to your goals and keep trying, like keep going for it. And so that really gave me a lot of motivation of, okay, it helped remind me why I'm doing this and why it's important, even though it's a hobby, it's a sport for me. Like it's not a job. It's just something that I love to do. And I think that showing them that it doesn't matter who thinks it's important or why it might be important. If it's important to them, right, then go for it, no matter how long it takes. And that kind of gave me the strength to keep going. Part of the test was running up Provo Canyon. It was only like a 5K. So it was 1.5 miles up, 1.5 miles down, wind in your face, running uphill. And he decided that he was going to run with me. And I think that he's the only reason why I survived that run, honestly, with the wind in the face. He's like, come on, mom, you can keep going. And like, don't stop. So yeah, I want to like give a lot of credit to my kids because I don't think I would be able to have done it without them, but it was for them to show them that if it's important, do it, right?
Absolutely. How, the way you're talking about your training now, even though you're using words like sport and hobby, you can tell it's really important to you. Even though you started with your kids and your kids have pulled back, it's remained important to you. Maybe it even sounds like more important to you than it was when you started. Can you talk about that contrast? How does martial arts fit into your life now versus 8 or so years ago when you started?
So one of the things is martial arts has kind of kept me alive. So I mentioned that I do have PTSD. There's some symptoms of that, such as like disassociation. So one of the things that martial arts training on the mats, when you're training like your mind with your body, and it helps keep your mind and your body connected and focusing on something else, and to get, the two to work together. Mm-hmm. It's a huge stress relief. Like when you're kicking the bag or you're kicking the paddles, it really just relieves that stress and that calms like that fight response. Sometimes it can get where you can get so stressed out, but it also kept me from isolating. So knowing that I had class to go to and knowing that I had people waiting on me and knowing that like I coached kids at nationals last year, knowing that I've got these kids with these smiling faces that are waiting for me to show up and coach them and teach them and motivate them. Right. And so that really kind of kept me from isolating myself because I like had to show up. It's one of those things that it really, okay, I'm trying to think of the right word to explain it. So it's like a passion, but it makes me feel alive. So if you go to class and even if you can like help that one person or coach that one person and all of a sudden they're like, oh, I got it. I get it. I can do it now. That just is like worth all of it. I had an experience. So I used to compete in sparring a lot. Mm-hmm. And it was at nationals in 2018. And I was in the middle of my match and I had timed like a head kick really, really well. And all of a sudden I heard the coach say, yeah, do it again. Right. And just like was excited. That was simple. It was simple. Just, yeah, do it again. It wasn't like, oh, do this and do that, do that, do that. It was like, yeah, do it again. And I heard that. And all of a sudden I felt like just motivated. Like, oh, yeah, I'm doing something right. So it's kind of like showing up and also helping the kids understand that, yeah, you're doing it right. Keep doing it. That was great. Let me see it again. Your form was beautiful. Things like that, that all of a sudden you see them light up and then they get that confidence. So that's part of why I love it so much, is it not only helps me, but by me being able to help other people too through it. If that,
Sure,
yeah.
it does. Now I'm gonna ask a question. Which I want you to feel free. If you don't want to answer, if you want to, we can just
Okay.
skip over to something else. But you
Yeah.
did kind of put this on the table. You mentioned a violent situation.
Yes.
And I'm listening not only to what you're saying, but the way you're saying certain things. You're kind of there's some things you're saying between your words, which suggests that I'm going to guess there's a connection between that situation ending and your time training, your martial arts training. Am I reading that right?
Um, Maybe explain your question further.
Sure.
I could elaborate on
Yeah, yeah.
the situations too. Yeah.
If you don't mind.
So I was originally diagnosed with the PTSD. Oh my goodness, like 12 years ago,
Mhm.
from a situation that happened 16 years ago. Um, I was I was shot by my now ex-husband, but I don't want to elaborate on the details of that. But that the gun violence, right? So
Mhm.
that's what originally caused the PTSD.
Mhm.
And I've been practicing for 8 years in martial arts, but right before COVID hit, like the whole pandemic and everything, I found myself in another relationship that was very aggressive and very threatening. Um, and it was really at the time I just started losing myself trying to keep the peace, trying to keep everybody calm, trying to make sure everybody was okay, trying to make sure nothing bad happened, right? And when I finally, I don't know, that's where I had almost quit, and I had almost lost myself completely. I think there was some gun violence involved in that one as well, although nothing was ever fired, if that makes sense with that one. But
Yeah.
so it kind of re-triggered a lot of, I guess, injury inside my brain, because PTSD really is a brain injury. Um, and that's where I think I realized the importance of the martial arts training and how it actually really does help me stay healthy and stay better. Um, Before it was just like, oh, it's fun and let's go compete and let's go get medals and but then after that second, you know, like relationship that was no good, like it just really became part of an essential to living for me.
Yeah. Um, I want to thank you for going there.
Yeah.
We don't need to spend a lot of time there, but I wanted to go there for a couple reasons. One, I think there's a contextual element there for the rest of your story that I think is important for other people to hear.
Okay.
And then secondly, we've talked about this on the show a few times that um, if you operate purely under the statistics, at any given time in any martial arts class, there will be multiple people. And in a large school, could be half a dozen or 10 people who have experienced some kind of traumatic, violent event.
Mhm.
And I am not used to instructors recognizing that fact. And so quite often you get someone who starts, and if this is an avenue you want to go down, we can, we don't have
Yeah.
to.
Let's
But
go down.
I'm just going to say it because I want everyone's wheels to turn.
Yeah.
that no, on day one, you don't generally want to pull aside a new student and say, so, you got any traumatic violence in your past? Have you been assaulted? Or there are things, right? That's a lot to ask of someone on day one. But to not necessarily throw people into the deep end, as we often do, and this is a place where sometimes men and women differ, right? Oftentimes guys are like, yeah, I'll jump in the deep end. You want me to jump in the NBA and play ball against the best in the world, or go for a 20-mile hike tomorrow? Sure, right? Like, whereas quite often, especially if we're talking about this dynamic, it can be a little more reserved. And so having some sensitivity to that, I think, is important. I think it's critical. So if you want to take that and run with it, you can.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
so I actually have there's a really good on my school instructor who was really good at picking up on the cues without me having to really say anything, right? So if I could like space out and like kind of just like stare out the window. It was kind of like he understood what was happening, and he was able to kind of bring me back without making it obvious to the whole class, and without making me feel like I shame, without making me feel embarrassed, without making it so obvious. There was times where I didn't really understand how to do a drill, and the words weren't making sense to me. And so he was really good at explaining it and showing me in a different way and modifying it and really breaking it down so that I could take it like piece by piece so that I could understand it and practice it too. And that's I learned a lot from that. And I think that it can go with, I know that when I'm instructing students and we want to practice something like the self-defense, the takedowns, like what happens if somebody grabs your shoulder? I think it's a good idea to always ask, can I grab your shoulder? Can I show you? Or if you want the two students to work together, okay, choose somebody that you feel comfortable with. And I think that would just go for everybody overall so that the one person doesn't feel like called out on it, right? So that's, I think you can pick up, if you're really paying attention to your students, you can pick up on those cues without having to ask them direct questions like, have you ever, and then sometimes they'll open up and they'll kind of tell you what's been going on. But I think it's like building that trust with them first.
I assume at some point, one of your instructors either asked a question or you said, it's probably going to be helpful to them to know some details here.
Yes, I let them know what was going on with me when all that.
And that's beneficial to everyone, right? Once you feel comfortable, and I imagine that comfort came because you saw that they were recognizing that there was something there, and it showed you that they cared, right?
Yes.
It's you got to build that rapport, and this isn't just about necessarily this subject. This can be about anything. If you're anybody who's taught or been a student knows that if that relationship is there, it works better for everyone. And building that relationship is absolutely worth the time.
And I think that goes with a lot. I've noticed like martial arts helping kids who have autism. I think it's great for kids with autism, kids with ADHD, and being able to understand that maybe their brains think a little bit different, they work a little bit different, and being able to modify it and break it down and like see that confidence rise in them. I really think martial arts can be healing for even more than just, recovering from traumatic experiences. I think that just in the sense of it helping bring your mind and your body and exercising both and developing both to work together, I think that is helpful for a lot of other things as well.
Yeah. I would agree.
Yeah.
Okay. So you talked about sort of the early days and competition and medals and doing this for your kids. And I get the sense that your motivation is almost taken a 180. It just sounds like it's so completely different. So the question is, do those reasons that motivated you at the beginning, do they no longer matter, or have you found things that matter more?
I think I've found things that matter more. I still would someday like to get back into competing. But I've found that I actually enjoy coaching kids to compete more than competing myself. I get like that, I don't know, that inner like feeling inside was just a lot more intense when I would, you know, even like if I was coaching a kid and they lost their match, but seeing that progress, right? Like
Mm.
I was coaching one young man, and I think he was like 7, and during practice and training, he would always back up. He would like stop kicking and he would back up. So the one thing that we were working on was like, don't back up, don't back up, just keep going. And he did not back up one time during his match. I think he lost by only a couple of points, but it was so amazing. And the whole school was just cheering for him. And just to see that progress, that was worth any, gold, silver, or bronze medal that I'd ever earned myself.
Mm.
And it was just like, and I think competing is still important to me at some point, but like what you said is correct. Like finding things that are more important on top of that is really is.
Yeah. How do I want to ask this? You started with your kids. You started because of your kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you have families that you can look to, this family didn't do martial arts together. So you could probably imagine, maybe in some alternate reality, this is where my family might be if we hadn't done this training together. Have you ever thought about that and what that decision did for you and your boys?
I haven't really ever thought like what it would be like if we never trained together.
Yeah.
I've never really thought about that, but thinking about it now, like I know that even though my boys don't practice martial arts regularly anymore, because of the time that we spent together doing that. I mean, I think that's the whole like why like my teenage son, he showed up for me on like both testing days. He ran that run with wind in our face up that canyon with me, and he didn't have to do that. Like that was his choice because it was I think that it brought us closer together, even if we're not still going to class every week together. There's still that, just as if you're all on the same soccer team and it's, encouraging your teammates, it kind of just, it's like glue, I guess, kind of glued us together a little bit. I know that when I decided to start doing martial arts, it was, so my older boy, he was 7 or 8, and I would sit there and I would watch him do class, and then I would see, oh, there's family classes, and I'm like, well, I might as well try it instead of just sitting here. And so I signed me and my younger one up for it. And that's just, it was something to do together. And I think having that togetherness is important. And I really think that that's helped us be closer as a family.
I love the dynamics of a family class. I see more and more schools doing it. It's something that I encourage when I talk with schools. If I'm working with a school as a client, I think there's so much value there. Is it necessarily the best learning environment for martial arts skill and technique? No. But it's not the only thing that matters.
Yep. I think there's the different dynamics of it. That's why I think, family classes, but then there should also be the classes for the adults and the classes for the kids that are more geared towards helping them learn at their different development stages.
I see the kama over your shoulder, and I think just about every video I've seen of you, you're swinging nunchaku.
Yes.
Nunchucks at some point, right? So is weapons something that you're really into, or just,
Yes.
Okay.
Good observation. My TikTok is all about my nunchaku, right? So I used to compete in sparring a lot, and I ended up having a concussion and a brain injury that has stopped me from being able to do head kicks, because getting another concussion on top of that is not
worth it.
So my competing and sparring is done, but I would like to someday compete in weapons. For my second degree test, so this is another tie-in to my test, one of the requirements is to come up with a creative weapons form, and I could choose between bow staff, commas, nunchuck, and eskrima sticks.
Mm.
And I chose nunchucks just because I had a little bit more experience with them.
Most people would argue that it's the hardest choice of the four, but
well, to me, it was the easier choice because I didn't know how to make anything else swing around.
Mm-hmm.
But I did. I was trying to figure out. I was struggling with them, and I was trying to figure out how to. And I still have a lot to learn, but how to make them flow. And I was trying to do something new, and I was swinging it above my head, and I have a aluminum pair, and that's the ones I was using. And it came back and it hit me really, really hard, like just clunk. And it was just the sound, it like echoed, right? And my instructor, she's like, let's go sit down for a minute. I'm like, no, I'm fine. Like it didn't shake the inside of my brain. Like my head didn't shake around. It just clunk right there on my forehead. And I did have a nice sized goose egg. And the funny thing about it is it motivated me even more. I'm like, okay, these nunchucks are not going to get the best of me. I'm going to figure this out. And so I started figuring some things out. And I think that's one of the great things about social media, when like I've been able to network with a lot of different martial artists, and I've been able to learn from their help on how to improve on the nunchuck especially. And so I learned some things from some friends, and I started to really get the hang of it a little bit. My friends from my school on those Sunday mornings would also help me figure out how to put it together into like a creative form. Yeah. And so I just really fell in love with the nunchaku. And so recently a goal of mine would be to compete with the nunchaku. And I recently become a member of the World Nunchaku Association, which isn't super popular yet here. I'm like the only member in Utah. And so it's really popular over in Europe and stuff like that. But the goal would be to move through their ranks. And once I'm able to become a black belt with their association, then I can hopefully represent the USA with that association. So that's
cool.
Some goals of mine, but I kind of took it from, what I personally love about the martial arts and the sparring was my thing for a while, but now it's moved on to something to where I can just kind of increase and expand my knowledge and hopefully network with a lot of other martial artists and help grow in that community.
Yeah. I gotta acknowledge it because I'm sure I'm not the only one that draws this connection. I'm going to stop sparring because of a concussion, but I'm going to choose nunchaku as my weapon. Because actually, the last episode I was recording, we were literally talking about concussions and knocking yourself unconscious. It is such a common thing, right? I mean, inevitably it's going to happen. You're going to hit yourself in the head if you're swinging those things around.
So I will not swing around solid. So my aluminum ones, they're hollow. Mm-hmm. I won't swing around solid hardwood or steel. The demo ones that I swing around, they're really, really light wood. I don't think I could knock myself out if I tried with those. And I believe the association that I joined, those ones are a special foam. Safety chucks that you are required to use when you compete and when you test. And so in that sense, with the kind of concussion that I had, it was one of those, kicks that came and swung around and just hit me square. It was like perfect timing for them, right? But bad timing for me. Right. And it just really kind of shook my head. And that's where those concussions come from. The difference for me with the type of nunchucks that I use is it can come back and swing me in the head. And yeah, you're going to get bruises on your arms, your hands, your head. but I'm not using ones that are heavy enough to cause something like that to happen. So it's something where I can still enjoy it, and I can enjoy it safely. And I have hung up my aluminum ones that are hollow. They're light, but it did leave a nice size goose egg.
I believe it.
Yeah.
I believe it. We've talked a little bit about how your life has come into martial arts and your martial arts has come back out into your life. But as someone who's 9 years, you've been training?
Yeah, 8.5.
Okay.
Between 8 and 9.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm always interested when we get someone on who starts as an adult, right? Because most of our guests started as kids. And when you start as a kid, you don't have a lot of contrast in life. You can't say, oh, my life without martial arts. I mean, I started when I was really young. I have no idea what life looked like before martial arts for me, but you do.
Yeah.
How is life different for you as a martial artist?
So I think it's doesn't really, like, I don't even really remember life before martial arts. So I know that my kids were really little. And I just remember working and taking care of my kids and just being a mom, right? One of the things that martial arts has given me is a little bit of myself, which is why I kind of talked about how when I thought about quitting, I knew that if I did quit, I would lose myself completely. And I think it's good to, to be, you're somebody's mom, you're somebody's sister, you're somebody's wife, you're somebody's, friend, but you should also, like, it's given me, I am myself too. So it's part of me. So it was kind of finding myself through that. I know that when I was really, really little, I used to play softball, and my dad used to coach me, and I played shortstop, and he used to tell me, don't let that ball get past you. And he's like, be a wall. And so he said, I don't really remember much of this, but he tells me, he's like, I would dive for that ball and I would never let that ball get past me. I would just be a wall. And so in martial arts, I think sometimes when you're doing that drill or you're, competing or you're testing, it's like, I still, in my head, I can hear my dad say, be a wall. Like, don't let it get the best of you. Don't let it get past you. Don't let it, beat you. Don't let that ball get past. Don't let that drill, get the best of you. Don't let those nunchucks get the best of you. I still hear that. And so it was kind of finding myself again, from, being that kid and being, into sports. And then now I'm a mom, and so you just it's kind of like finding yourself again is what it was for me.
Finding yourself again. I like that. We talk often about martial arts as a personal development, personal growth process or engine, if you will. And I think that's why I find what I do so fascinating, because you put you put different people through the same sort of process, and what comes out is so different because it's, you're revealing, I guess, who you are in there and putting these pieces together. And it blows me away how, you're going to be episode 800 and whatever. We've done this hundreds of times, and it's roughly the same thing that we all do. We all punch and kick or swing this or grapple that. And yet who we are and who we become is so dramatically different, so individualized through this process. And I continue to find that fascinating. And, I've said, I'll keep doing this until it's not fun anymore, until it's not interesting. And I don't think it's ever going to stop being interesting because it's so dramatically different watching.
There's so many different aspects of it. That's kind of why I think that's where the art comes in, right? Because I think in martial arts, you can take any personality, any background, and you're going to get something different out of it. They're going to learn something different out of it. They're going to grow as a person differently out of it. They need something differently out of it. And I think that's kind of where that that art comes in, because there's so many different kinds of martial arts. There's, different styles. There's different, like I know even with the nunchucks, there's performance art, swinging it around, throwing it up in the air. Like nunchucks were, from my understanding, they were a weapon used that used to be a farmer's tool. And it was to be disguised so that they wouldn't know it was a weapon, right? And so it was used to defend. And the way that I swing them around, it's not really practical. If I were to be in combat with somebody or to try to defend myself from somebody, you'd want to do more strikes with it, right? So I think there's different styles in different things, but I think that's where the art comes in. And I think that's where the respect also comes in, is the respect of knowing that. And so sometimes, like, it's really exciting for me to meet other martial artists who understand that aspect, where it's not just, there's not a better style, there's not a better way to do it. It's all in an art of that person and how they represent it and what it means to them. I don't think there's a better, I don't know. That's where I think it becomes interesting, and it can never, like for me as well, become boring.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm with you, right? There are just so many different ways that you can slice it. And, it sounds like you, I'm not going to say luck or lucky. I'm going to say you're fortunate that you found a school, that your first school clicked for you.
It's my third school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How did we not talk about that? Okay.
I don't know, I just
Okay,
never.
well, that sounds rather significant. Can we go there?
Yeah. So the first school that I started at, it was a pretty large school. It was right around the corner from where I lived when my kids were really little. And it was, I think, like a year and a half into that school, one of our favorite instructors, he tested for his master, fourth degree, and he started his own school. And because he was the instructor that we had learned the most from, that motivated my boys the most, we decided to leave that school and go and be part of his new school. And I was with that school through my first degree, and then it was really focused on sparring. Mm-hmm. And so when I was not able to spar anymore, I started looking into what else I could learn with martial arts, and I found a school that had more of like the Poomsae experience, and like the weapons and things like that I could expand my knowledge in, where I just kind of felt stuck at the time where I was at. It was a really hard decision because I had been there for so many years, and I had a lot of close friends that I would see multiple times a week, that I knew that just it was going to be different. And so it was a hard decision, but at the time, I'm glad that I made that choice, because I felt like it really helped me grow and network and trying to expand in what I'm able to do. So I am currently at my third school, just circumstances.
It sounds like the same organization, association.
Yes. So the Olympic style Kwon, USA Taekwondo style is
All right. Yeah, I'm trying to put myself in your place, knowing that this particular school, being sparring focused, doesn't work for your needs anymore, but the social connections and thinking so highly of those people and needing to make that conscious decision to leave. That must have been horrible.
It was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so given that there's an audience here, I mean, we're not talking to them, but they're going to hear you. They're going to see you.
Yeah.
I bet there are at least a handful of people who, listening, if not many handfuls, who are contemplating the same decision, but maybe for different reasons. They're thinking, this isn't the spot for me anymore. Maybe this isn't the spot for me anymore. I'm not getting what I need. I'm not getting what I want. Do you have any advice for them?
Yeah. So go for what you need. Go for what you want. I don't think that we do, I know that my kids are a huge motivation, but like when we are doing martial arts, we're doing it for ourselves, right? And it's we're not doing it for our friends. We're not doing it for the people at the school. And so if you feel like it's really kind of you're not growing and you need to change or you need to expand, I would definitely say to, take that chance, take that risk and make that move. Because when you do it with um, the right kind of motivation or the right reasons behind, just wanting to expand. And I still think you can keep those friendships. I know that I have seen my previous school at tournaments and been able to, hey, how's it going? Chat, have lunch later, and still, keep that community within. But don't forget that it'll also help you expand if you move forward for what's best for you, would be my advice, I guess.
Yeah. And I would say, and I might get some pushback from some people on this, but if the school that you're at, if you've been there a little while and it does not meet your needs, and there is another school that may meet your needs better, and you want to go to that school, and you get a hard time from the school that you're at, I think that's proof that's not the right school.
I agree. When I left the school I was at, I went in and I had a conversation with the master personally, and I just told him why, and I left on good terms. I think it still hurt. It still hurt me, and I said it hurt my friends a little bit. They didn't.
Sure.
I don't think everybody understood why I made the change, but it was without any hard feelings. That would also be, I think, having that conversation in person, I think, was important when making that change as well.
Yeah. Yeah. At the end of the day, as an instructor, your job is to help your students grow. And if your students need to grow in a way that takes them away from you, but it's the right choice for them, then you got to swallow your pride. You got to, whether it's a prideful element, oh, this person needs something I can't provide, and that kind of stinks, or maybe it's a financial thing. Oh, this person's going to take their tuition money and go elsewhere. That can also stink. But I will say this, and you've probably seen this too. Schools that support that make the priority supporting their students are healthier, happier, more financially successful than the ones that try to, no, you can't leave.
Yeah, and they were really understanding of it too. They
Sure.
were really understanding of it, and I thought that was, I am glad because we're all part of the same Taekwondo community here in Utah, and I, might have the opportunity to work with them again, or when else I see them at tournaments and stuff like that. So it's in a sense I kind of left, but in a sense not. We're still in the same community.
Yeah. So what's next for you? What if we sync back up? Let's say you come back on the show in 5 years. What would you hope we were talking about?
The World Cup nunchaku.
Okay. You're all in. You're all in on swinging the ropey sticks.
I am. So I've signed myself up for official classes and learning online, cool. And I'm hoping to be a yellow belt soon when I test for it. So that's
nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Does your current school know that you're doing this? Are they supportive of this?
I have not talked to them. They don't have specific nunchaku classes. Okay. They've got a demo team that they do with the kids, right? And I know that one of the masters is really, really good. And so I wanted to talk to her and see if she could help me along with it. They're not a school that's, you can only learn from us, right? Like expand the knowledge. Because the knowledge that I learn, I'm going to be bringing back and teaching there and helping the next, student that's trying to come up with their creative form and they choose nunchucks. That's one of the things that they have at that school. They've brought in people who have backgrounds in karate and backgrounds in like jujitsu and things like that. They're instructors. And so we kind of get to learn different aspects and ways to bring the martial arts together.
Right on. Okay. If people want to follow you, I mean, we've talked about TikTok, but I know your other places too. Where do they go to watch you swinging your nunchaku?
So I have my Facebook under Jessie Elva. I also have Instagram, and then I have tried to start a YouTube. I'm not great at keeping that up, but that one is going to be under the name Zukuari-Eye, which is my ninja name.
You have a ninja name? How do I get a ninja name? I want a ninja
You just
name.
Google the letters for it's kind of silly, but it kind of stuck with me. The ninja alphabet, and for each letter there is a um like a sound with letters, I guess. So uh Jess is Zukuari in ninja, and then I added the I at the end of the EYE, would be Zukuari.
Oh, I'm
And
gonna
that's
look this up. I didn't
yes.
even know. I didn't even know this was a thing.
Yeah.
Right on.
So it's kind of silly, but it just kind of stuck. I like the way
Yeah,
it sounded, and
it's fun.
yeah.
Okay, cool. And of course, the audience will have this stuff in the show notes. You can click links, and maybe we'll even put in the ninja name finder. Maybe we can do that.
Yeah, I'll have to send it to you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate you coming on. Thank you for your
Yeah.
time, and your turn to kind of wrap us up here. What are your? How do you want to leave it with the audience?
I don't know. I would just say, just even if it just kind of goes back to, if you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. If you can't crawl, scooch. If you can't scooch, roll. Even if it's just a little bit, keep trying. Keep, whether it's martial arts or anything really, your goal is important, and that's just kind of how I want to leave it through my own experience. Just keep working towards it, even if it's slow.
Hey, Jessie, thanks for coming on. Audience, thanks for checking this out. Make sure you do the things that I know you do. You share, you comment, you like, all that good stuff. You can check out the Whistlekick Martial Arts Facebook group, Martial Arts Radio Facebook group, Facebook page. Recently moved to a page. And see all the stuff that other people are saying about these episodes. You can join our family Patreon. You can, I don't know, what else can you do? You can leave reviews. I might have said that. You can buy stuff at whistlekick.com. You know all the stuff. I tell you this stuff every time. Help us out, please. Do one of the things. I'd appreciate it. If you want to follow us on social media, we're at Whistlekick. If you want to email me, it's jeremy@whistlekick.com. I appreciate you being here. Thanks for spending some time. Until next time, train hard, smile, and have a great day.